Tonight I'm going to be reading from Luke chapter 5, verses 12 through 16. While Jesus was in one of the towns, a man came along who was covered with leprosy. When he saw Jesus, he fell with his face to the ground, and he begged him, "Lord, if you're willing, you can make me clean." Jesus reached out his hand, and he touched the man. "I am willing," he said. "Be clean." Immediately the leprosy left him. And then Jesus ordered him, "Don't tell anyone, but go show yourself to the priest and offer sacrifices that Moses commanded for your cleansing as a testimony to them." Yet the news about him spread all the more, so that crowds of people came to hear him and to be healed of their sicknesses. But Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and prayed. Amen. The obvious bad news in this is that the man has leprosy. And leprosy would have been a horribly disfiguring disease. Their faces would have been distorted. Their noses would have caved in. Their hands would have become like claws because the bones in their hands would twist and gnarl. Actually, any bone in their body could do that. Leprosy itself attacks the nervous system, which would cause the person to not be able to feel pain. If they ran into something, they might not notice, or if they were using a knife or cutting something, they may not have enough sensation in their hands to be able to tell that they've actually injured themselves. So a lot of times they'll lose limbs and be injured, let alone the fact that they are horribly disfigured. And at the time when this man lived, people who had leprosy would have been outcasts from society. They would have been forced to live outside of the city gates, a very lonely, humiliating type of life. If they even pet a dog, the dog would have to be killed because it would be considered unclean. So, it's pretty severe to have this. It would have been a really sad, lonely life for anyone who suffered with this debilitating disease. He probably would have even had nights where he was hungry, and people probably wouldn't have wanted to give him food because they wouldn't want to be close enough to feed him. The good news is that he has an encounter with Jesus Christ. It says when he's walking through one of the towns, a man came who was covered with leprosy. So we know he has a full-on, pretty severe case of leprosy. And when he saw Jesus, he fell to his face on the ground. So falling to his face on the ground tells me when the man saw Jesus, he probably did what was protocol. He probably called out, "Unclean, unclean," as a warning. "Don't come near me, I'm dirty." And then the natural reaction would be he wouldn't want Jesus to see him in that condition. Of course, Jesus already knows what condition he's in. And probably, we don't have a lot of detail from the different accounts of this story, but we're not told that anyone else is around, but I'm going to assume that possibly some of the disciples he's just picked up, from the fishing expedition, are actually getting to see a lesson right now on how to be fishers of men. Jesus goes up to this man even while he's probably saying "unclean, unclean," and covering his face, and he's prostrate on the ground, all the while saying to Jesus, "I know you can heal me if you want to. If you're willing to heal me, you can heal me. I know you can." This tells me that this leper has heard of Jesus before, and he has heard that Jesus has healed before. It also tells me that he has faith that Jesus can heal him, because he says, I know you can do this. So God, through this situation, is displaying his humanity. He has sent, obviously, Jesus to tell people about his love. And here's this man. What a what better example is there? This is a man who is outcast from society. He can't even go into the walls where normal people live. He's come upon, the Savior of mankind, and he reaches out his hand and he touches him, and immediately he's healed. Just the touch alone would have been, whether he was healed or not, the fact that Jesus reached out his hand and touched this man had to be healing. Maybe not physically healing, but emotionally healing. Just to know that he hadn't been touched in so long, in such a long time, and yet here is, God's one and only Son walking on the earth, reaches out a hand and touches him at a time when other people would have ran from him, and probably did, and that's probably why there was no one else around at the time besides whoever was hanging out with Jesus, because there's no way they would have risked catching leprosy. One thing that I think maybe if there were people around, they were probably in shock. The only people that I can imagine are there at the time would be Jesus, the leper, and possibly disciples. Something that was intriguing to me that makes me question or wonder more was that Jesus could have healed that man without even touching him. He could have just willed it. He didn't have to touch the man to heal him, but he did, and he did it for a reason. I think the reason is to show us now reading the Bible, it doesn't matter how far you've been cast out from society. It doesn't matter how ugly and disfigured you are on the outside or the inside or whatever else could be going on in your life. You're never too far from the possibility, if you're willing to be healed. You can be healed by Christ. All you have to do is ask. And that's all this man did. He said, if you're willing, you can heal me. And that's the same for us today. He's standing, in waiting for us to ask him to come and touch us and give us the healing touch. What kind of troubled me or kind of caused resistance, I guess, was it was kind of interesting to me that Jesus asked him not to tell anyone. And I just thought, why? Why would Jesus do that? Well, number one, I'm sure he's tired. He's been going around healing people in large crowds, and I imagine that was exhausting, both physically and emotionally. And I think that shows maybe the human side of him too, that, and he doesn't want to be used by these people. So he doesn't want anybody to know, because he doesn't want them coming to him asking for healing and not really wanting anything else, kind of using him as a vending machine. And another thing was Jesus told the man to go to the priest and make a sacrifice or an offering, which was part of a ritual for people who had been healed from leprosy, which, by the way, there weren't very many people. I think it's like 3 or 4 in the Bible that were cases where they actually did get to do this religious offering because they had been healed. This would have been a sign, I guess, to the priests that, without the man saying he had been healed by Jesus, they would have to assume that he had been with Jesus to be healed, because at the time there was no cure for that. So you have to, as a priest, you would think that he was probably thinking, you've had an encounter with Christ, or something miraculous has happened to you, because it's not normal for people to be healed of this. I think one of the last questions that we have on our lesson was the places that we've mentioned so far. Obviously, when the city where they meet, that's one place. The second place would be the temple where he sends the leper to make an offering. The third place is a place where Jesus can be alone. And I find this to be helpful especially right now with me, because it shows that Jesus needed to get away. He needed time with his Father to recharge and to refocus. He had had enough of the crowds. At this point, they're following him around, but a lot of them because they want something from him. And he just needs some time alone to refocus and to recharge and to just bathe himself in the Lord. In God. And I just feel like sometimes when we're busy with life and we're doing this and we're doing that, this is just a really good visual reminder that we need to search out a lonely or an alone, quiet place where we can sit and talk to God and just listen. Listen to what he has to say. It's in the still, quiet times that he speaks the loudest to us. I think, too, I want to go back to the part before I finish where the man is told not to tell his family. Well, he's told not to tell anyone. But you can imagine if you had been an outcast, you would still remember probably who your family was. And if something miraculous like that had happened to you, even though you may not say anything, I can imagine I would go back to my family and I would be like, ta-da, look, I'm here, I'm healed. You wouldn't necessarily have to say anything. All you would have to do is just show up, and they're going to notice the difference. Once you were covered and you were scarred and mangled and, just horrible disfigurement to look at, and now you're clean. And so he doesn't even have to say anything. And I relate that to when you come across people who, I don't know, they just glow from the inside out, and you're just like, there's just something different about you. I relate that to the same thing because this man, he shows up and he's healed. He's brand new. He's, sparkly, shiny, and he doesn't have to say anything. And I think sometimes when we're full of the Spirit of God, we just shine from the inside out, and people just know they've seen this transfiguration from this old, dead, ugly, torn up, mangled, gnarly body into this new, saved, clean child of God. And that's the whole point of life, is to grow up and to learn and to love and to seek out God and to just commit our lives to Him, so that we can spend an eternity in heaven with our Father. I thank you guys for your time, and I look forward to your critiques, and love y'all and praying for you. Bye.